Restaurants, bars, all burning, but no one knows why. Melbourne is generally known as one of the safest cities in the entire world, but recently, it's suddenly turned into a crime scene, literally overnight.
We're not talking about just one or two random incidents here. This was a highly coordinated string of over 15 initial attacks that rapidly spiraled into a massive turf war. Restaurants, bars, nightclubs, even your local corner convenience stores all targeted, one right after another. It became super clear really fast. This wasn't random. This was a meticulously planned wave of firebombings and shootings tearing right across the suburbs. Businesses were forced to shut down, people were absolutely terrified, and the entire city was left asking the exact same question.
And that brings us to this staggering number, over 125. That is the total number of arson attacks and firebombings that have ripped across Victoria since early 2023. I mean, it's looked like an absolute war zone. Just picture it, masked silhouettes in the dead of night, smashed windows, jerry cans of fuel being thrown into innocent family businesses, and getaway cars speeding off into the dark.
But amidst all that chaos, there is one number that is undeniably the most devastating. 1. That's the number of confirmed deaths in this conflict so far. A 27-year-old woman named Katie Tangi tragically lost her life in a house fire in Truganina. It was a horrific attack, and authorities actually believe it was a case of mistaken identity, brutally tied directly to this exact turf war.
So, the question on everyone's mind, who is actually behind this? Well, investigators quickly realized they weren't just dealing with a few random arsonists. No, they were looking at a massive, hidden network. We're talking about a corporatized crime-for-hire operation where violence is quite literally just bought and sold.
And the motive? Well, it always comes down to money, doesn't it? Try a mind-blowing $6.7 billion. That's the estimated potential loss in government excise taxes for 2024 alone, according to a major report by FTI Consulting. So yeah, this is definitely not some petty street beef. This is a modern-day gold rush, and it is centered entirely around the illicit black market tobacco trade.
It's basically the perfect economic storm. You see, increasing excise taxes on legal tobacco are driving retail prices sky high in Australia. When you combine those crazy prices with the crippling cost of living crisis we're seeing everywhere right now, everyday consumers are basically being pushed straight into the arms of the black market. And finding these illegal products, it's easier than ever.
The profit margins for these groups are just astronomical, so it's easy to see why crime syndicates are literally willing to kill for this turf. To put it in perspective, a legal pack of Winfield 25s will set you back nearly $69, but the equivalent amount of illicit, loose-leaf tobacco, just $14.48. That is a wild difference. And because of that massive price gap, demand on the streets is absolutely exploding. In just 1 year, from 2023 to 2024, the consumption of illicit loose-leaf tobacco spiked from 1,600 tons to a record-breaking 2,300 tons. That's a 42.3% jump. With that much untraceable cold hard cash flooding the streets, the crime bosses decided it was time to establish a total monopoly.
So here's how it all went down. In March 2023, the key players held this secretive underworld meeting. Their goal was to form a commission, kind of like the mafia back in the day, to control the market and dictate the prices. But the meeting completely failed. By September, these syndicates went to absolute war with each other, which forced Victoria Police to step in and establish a dedicated strike force known as Task Force Lunar.
As Detective Inspector Graham Banks perfectly summed it up, it got to a point in March where you had various people start to step on each other. And the main catalyst for all this friction? Well, a major organized crime figure who was based entirely offshore, by the way, just flat out refused to play ball and participate in this commission.
That single refusal was the spark that ignited the bloody turf war we're seeing today. So, on one side, you have the deeply entrenched Hadara crime family and their allies. And on the other side, the aggressive challengers, the Hamad Syndicate. We're not talking about petty street gangs here. These are highly organized, incredibly wealthy corporate syndicates battling for absolute supremacy over the city's illegal tobacco empire.
So, how exactly do they fight this war? Basically through a really dark franchise model. They use coordinated firebombings, extortion of small business owners, and vehicle ram raids. But their key tactic is outsourcing. These corporate syndicates operate entirely in the shadows. They purchase violence by hiring youth street gangs and outlaw motorcycle gangs, like the Finks, the Mongols, and the Rebels, to actually go out and do their dirty work.
Now, law enforcement is definitely pushing back hard. Task Force Lunar has been busy. They've executed over 200 search warrants, made over 100 arrests, seized multiple tons of illicit tobacco, and confiscated over $2 million in cash. I mean, they are making massive, multi-million-dollar busts. But here is the terrifying reality of the situation. The true masterminds, they remain completely out of reach.
Which brings us to the alleged architect behind all of this chaos, the shadow boss himself, Qassam Hamad. Hamad is a 40-year-old career criminal who was actually deported from Australia to Iraq back in 2023 after he served an 8-year sentence for heroin trafficking. Police sources identify him as the mastermind pulling the strings, reportedly orchestrating this entire campaign of violence and intimidation safely from the Middle East.
And this right here is the legal loophole that makes this whole situation so incredibly frustrating for the authorities. An extradition treaty is the formal agreement that allows a country to bring a wanted criminal back to face trial. Well, guess what? Australia and Iraq do not have one, which means, despite all the mounting evidence, the millions of dollars seized, and the burned-out storefronts, the alleged head of this entire operation simply cannot be dragged into an Australian courtroom.
So as the arrests keep piling up and the smoke clears over yet another burnt-out shop, the police are basically left trying to connect the final dots. They are tracking the money, decrypting the chats, and hunting these shadow figures. But every single time a new firebomb is thrown or a siren wails in the night, the biggest question echoing through the city remains: who ordered it?
Because at the end of the day, this isn't just some local gang rivalry. It's a brutal, calculated corporate takeover happening right in front of us. Because when crime becomes a business, anyone can become a target.